When have you said that's not my name? 1. My name on my birth certificate is Maggie. I was about 7 years old and my mom had taken me to a doctor's appointment. We were in the waiting room and the nurse comes out and starts looking for Margaret. After a few moments she's getting more and more impatient as no one in the full waiting room is acknowledging her. Finally, in a huff, she says, "Uck, Maggie," and my mom and I stand and go to her to follow her back. We hadn't even noticed her calling the wrong name. She has an attitude and asks why we didn't come when she called my Christian name. I told her, "I'm Jewish, I don't have a Christian name." She says, "Your real name is Margaret." My mom tore into her, asking where she saw that name anywhere on the paperwork. That in fact, my real name is Maggie and that she needed to learn to read and not make assumptions. This type of conversation was to be repeated with teachers of mine throughout my educational career who thought they knew better than my parents. I finally changed my name to use my Hebrew name. No more issues with being called Margaret. 2. 1958. My grandfather, Maurice, hated my name and would not call me Sean. He called me Gus. I was 8 years old and tired of the disrespect, so I didn't respond when he repeatedly called me to come into the kitchen. He charged out to the living room and angrily demanded to know why I ignored him. I said, "My name is Sean. Call for Sean and I will come." He got a look on his face that made me think I was going to get beaten. Then he nodded and said, "At least there is one person in this family who has some balls." He called me Sean for the rest of his life. 3. Third grade. My full first name is Christopher. My teacher always thought she would be cute and call me Christopher Robin or Christopher Columbus when taking roll call in the mornings. After refusing to answer multiple times, she popped me with a ruler and I basically said a bad word, so she took me to the principal and I got 5 pops on the ass. I made the principal call my mom. I explained, honestly for once, exactly what happened. Mom got that finger up the teacher's face and explained my full name to her and what names she could use when addressing me. It involved my first name, first and middle, and last, just plain Chris or Mr. Gursky, but never to strike me for not answering up to a different name. She then turned to the principal and told her where she would stick that paddle if she ever struck one of her children again without talking with her first. There were 3 of us in elementary school at the time. I must say, even 50 years later, that was one of the most pleasing days of my school years. 4. 8th grade government class. My teacher was calling on Lisa. I turned around to see who Lisa was, but no one answered. I turned back around, and she pointed at me. I told her my name wasn't Lisa. I got a D in that class. I'm not sure if it was because she didn't think I participated since she didn't know my name or because my mom went to the school to complain. 5. I was at a doctor's office to get some stitches out. The assistant said my first name in the waiting room. I was sitting on the side. A patient stood up when I did. The assistant didn't see me and took them back. I figured they could sort it. An assistant came out and called a name that could be confused with mine if you have hearing difficulties. Bob versus Rob, not actual name. When no one stood up, I stood up and announced my actual name. They take me back and question me about my name. Later I saw the other patient. I asked them about it. They said they were ready to take stitched out of them. Really, medical people have become so irresponsible. Years ago, I worked in a hospital taking blood. I always compared the name, room number and hospital number on the armband to the order slip I had. We were taught to check it before you draw blood and to label your samples at bedside and check it again at the end. I refused to draw a sample if everything did not match up or if there was no armband. Once, we were told that errors can kill people. I did have a few nurses give me a hard time for following policy. 6. Not me, but my oldest son, a very pale, blue-eyed, Irish-looking redhead. A couple years ago, he was having some kind of stomach issue and it was bad enough to go to the ER, so I went with him, even though he was already an adult. The doctor saw him, gave him a prescription for medication, and said the nurse would be in with discharge papers shortly. Okay, cool. A little while later, a nurse walks into the exam room and starts talking about preparing him for surgery, what valuables he has with him, such as his wallet, that he wants to leave me to hold on to, etc. Both me and my son ask if she has the right room, and she insisted that she did. There was no way I was going to let my son get thrown into somebody else's surgery, but she insisted she was in the right room, so we just sat back and went with it, answering her questions. After all, she'd already said 3 times that she's definitely in the right room. After about 5 minutes of answering questions, AMD my son looking at each other like, "You're seeing/hearing this, too, right?" The nurse says, "Okay, Mr. McGee, do you have any questions for me?" Which I gladly responded, "Yes, are you sure you have the right room? 'Cause his name is not Mr. McGee." She turned about 15 shades of red, and my son earned a new nickname that day. We call him Mr. McGee. 7. I am a twin. My mother thought it would be cute to call us Rusty and Dusty. So at the beginning of the 1st grade she went with us to school and told them that this is Ronald, he goes by Rusty, and this is Robert, me, and he answers to Dusty. In the 2nd grade mom assumed that our name would carry over or be conveyed, or she didn't even give it any thought. 2 weeks into the 2nd grade year, the school called my mom wanting to know if Robert was ill, because he hadn't been to school. So when I got home from school that day I was informed of what my name actually was. In my mind there was something most definitely wrong with my folks. I knew my mother's full name, I knew my father's full name, I knew our home phone number and I knew our residential street address, but I didn't know my real name. What is wrong with you people? I am now 75 years old, soon to be 76, and I still do not answer to Robert. I am Dusty Walker.